Welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I'm your host, Anna Gray. The best thing about being a nurse and entrepreneur over the last 25 years are the relationships I've developed and the people I've met. As a legal nurse consultant, I wanted you to hear from those amazing people in the legal and healthcare communities. I wanted you to hear who they are and to celebrate them with me. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered. Let's dive into the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. Welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I'm really excited. I know I say this every time. I'm really excited to talk to my guest today, but I am really excited to talk to my guest, Jess, here, because it's been a long time coming. We've tried to get this on the books, and here we are. So, Jess, I'm really excited to get to know you more and share your story. So I appreciate you being here. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I was laughing, thinking about how long has it actually been since we tried to chat, and I went back through our messages, and it was last May that we first tried to do this. So it really has been a long time coming.
It really has been. It's kind of surreal to think that this podcast has been out for over a year now. So I keep having these memories that pop up, like Tim Kaine's episode. It popped up, and I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, do you realize that your episode came out a year ago?" And he was like, "What?"
Let's do it again.
Even for me, it's really surreal to think that this podcast has been out for over a year. But yes, we have been trying to get this on the books for years. So here we are, guys.
Here we are.
It's happening.
We made it happen.
We made it happen. We're busy. It's okay. And I always tell people, if I've asked you to be on the podcast, it's an open invitation because I will forget to re-ask you. And when the time is right, the time is right,
Exactly.
So here we are. So thank you.
Of course.
All right. So for the people that don't know you yet, where in the world are you coming from? I know where you're coming from, but where in the world are you coming from?
So I am in San Diego. This is where I live now. I'm not originally from San Diego. I grew up in Lake Tahoe and then relocated here about 13 years ago. So this is home now.
Okay. Now I love San Diego because that's where I grew up.
Yes.
So it is still, I've been away for many, many years now. I'm not too far, but it's still home for me. My family is still down there. So I still feel like it's home for me. So
it's the best.
I know it really is. It's like the perfect weather, everything.
Yeah, it's cloudy today, which I shouldn't even be complaining. It actually rained the last 2 or 3 days. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But I lived in Seattle. I went to college in Seattle, so I can handle 3 days of rain.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So we're going to have to unwrap a little bit of this because that's what we do on this podcast. We unwrap people's stories. So here we are. Okay. So go back to the fact that you grew up in Lake Tahoe. So you grew up in Lake Tahoe, very tiny town of Lake Tahoe.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? Were you a kid there? Like, how much time did you spend there?
Yeah. So my parents are actually from Orange County. My entire family still lives, most of them, some have left, but they all still lived in Orange County at the time. Mm-hmm. My dad wanted to move. He was in law enforcement. Mm-hmm. He told my mom, "Hey, I got this job up at the lake. They loved it up there. Like, let's do it. Let's move." And my mom's like, "All right, great." Well, the kicker was my dad had an interview, not yet a job, but he was ready. He was confident. So they went, he interviewed, he got the job. And then we lived there for 16 years. I grew up there, very tiny town.
Yeah.
I thought it was boring because we didn't have a mall and there was only a subway. So I always wanted to go back to Orange County because I just thought, great, that's, I don't know, more exciting, but didn't realize just how lucky I was to live where I lived.
I know.
My
As
parents,
an adult.
right? You look back. In the summer we were on boats and wakeboarding, and in the winter it was snowboarding and skiing. That's what we did, which is great. My parents moved to Reno when I was 16, and they're still there. graduated from high school in Reno, and then I went to college in Seattle, where I played soccer up there and went to nursing school.
Oh, all right. So you're a soccer player. I love it.
Yes. Yes,
In
I
a
played.
rainy and going to school up there and playing soccer in a very
Yes.
wet environment.
Yes. It was definitely a change. The city, it was a great opportunity to get out of a small town to then move to Seattle.
Oh,
And
totally.
I played there for until my junior year. And then I had my second hip surgery.
Oh my God.
And my doctor was like, "Hey, girl, you want to be a nurse one day? I don't know if you should still play." So I stopped playing and just focused on my education. And, that was that. And that was great. It was actually good timing. I got to have a college experience outside of being an athlete, which was good.
Oh yeah, no kidding. That's great. That's great. I love to hear student athlete stories because I was an athlete. I played soccer also, but I didn't go to school and play. And it was always one of those things where, gosh, I wish I did. And to hear other people's stories on, when a lot of times they play their whole 4 years, sometimes they go and they play 1 year, they come back, they go to a different school, and it's always interesting to hear it after the fact. But I always cheer people on that do go and, are student athletes, because it's something that I, as a kid,
Right.
would have loved to have done, but obviously that wasn't my journey. So
It was great. I mean, just the character I think that it builds, growing up and learning about losses and working through hard times, and just the stuff I learned being a student athlete was great. And I honestly think that stopping that journey was just as important, because when I stopped playing, I really had this loss of identity. I mean, that was my entire life, was I was a soccer player, and I had kind of built-in friends, right? Like your team is your family. You go to college, like you've got your team there, and you meet, your friends with the other teams, and it's just kind of all built in. So when I stopped playing, and I kind of had to figure out who am I outside of the sport? Like, how do I make friends outside of the people that were just kind of built in?
Totally.
And that was a huge lesson. There was a sense of loss there that I think was great for me to experience and really learn who I was besides just being a soccer player.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. I totally get that. Okay. So when you went away to school, did you know that you wanted to go into nursing right away? Was that your plan?
It was. I wanted to be a nurse, I think, since I was like 7. I think it started with a movie theater popcorn maker when I realized that that wasn't really a journey I should probably follow.
Okay.
Extended into being, I wanted to be a baby doctor, is what I called it.
Okay.
And then 2 of my girlfriends, their moms, who were a huge part of my life growing up, one was an ER nurse and one was a PICU nurse. And I was just obsessed with listening to their stories, and always wanted to know, like, what did you see at the hospital? Or, how many babies did you deliver? I was obsessed. And so I knew from a very young age, that's what I wanted to do. And I always thought I'd be an L&D nurse or a NICU nurse. Okay. And so I graduated and chose the school I went to because I could play soccer there. And they had a really great nursing program. It almost felt like cheating, because that nursing program, when you applied to go to college there, you got into the program.
Wow.
Whereas I think most universities, you go as like a freshman, sophomore, and then you apply and hope to get in, which I'm sure is super stressful. So I was very lucky, knowing that I was in the program already, as long as I kept my grades up, and went to school and graduated in my 4 years, and that was it. So I pretty much always knew I wanted to be a nurse.
Yeah, that's cool. The traditional, I love to hear that too, because it doesn't seem like it's most people's journey. Although nowadays, I think there are more and more nursing programs that are that you can apply to right out of high school. And so I find it fascinating, because when I went to nursing school, that wasn't even a thing.
Right.
That was just not a thing. Not that I would have applied to nursing school. Maybe. I don't know. I think I've said this on the podcast. My mom, there's a picture framed downstairs that I had written. I think I was maybe 7 years old, and I had written, I want to be a nurse when I grow up because I want to help doctors. I can't, something like that. It's sitting on a wall downstairs. And my mom found this only a few years ago, and I go, wait a minute, I wrote that thing. I don't remember ever wanting to be a nurse. So, so I don't know if it would have presented itself when I graduated from high school, if I would have taken that route, but maybe I would have, because maybe I wrote it somewhere.
It was there. It was meant to be. It was just meant to be discovered at some point.
Did not know that. Okay. So you went to nursing school, and you said you originally wanted to be an L&D nurse or PICU nurse, or a baby nurse. Did you have an experience during nursing school that kept you on that track, or did you say you saw something else and said, no, I'm going to go a different route?
Yeah. So I had my rotation in OB, and I was like, I think we might have had a day or two in the NICU too. And I was like, yep, this is it. Like, this is where I'm meant to be. Love it. All the things. And so our senior year, it's like our last quarter, you apply for your practicum, which is like, you give your 3 top spots that you want to be, and you kind of really get to work more as like a nurse under someone, but you're doing the things, you get that feel, right? So I had put L&D, NICU, and then my last one, I was like, whatever, I'll do ER. Like, that's fine. Like, that's just throwing something out there. So back up. So I get my assignment, and it's Harborview ER. And I'm like, what? This is not really what I wanted. And Harborview is a huge hospital in Seattle. It's a huge trauma hospital. Their catchment area at the time, I don't know if it's the same, but at the time, it included they call it the whammy state. So it included Washington, Alaska, Montana, and Idaho, where they would get many of their traumas.
Okay.
And I was even more surprised because they hadn't assigned a practicum to that ER in a long time, because it was just very high acuity. So I was nervous. I was like, I made a huge mistake. This is, oh my gosh, I can't believe I got myself into this. And I started there, and I never looked back. I knew immediately during that time that it was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like I said, it was a very high acuity. My first couple shifts were in the trauma room. Yeah. I'll never forget, we had a man come in from a logging accident with a C2 fracture who was paralyzed. And it was amazing watching them go through the resuscitation and identifying like signs that show, severe spinal cord damage before they even had the imaging done.
Right.
We had a man who came in after swallowing a shot of glass shards that his buddies dared him to do. And then,
oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow.
And then a couple, tragically, a couple that was in a really severe accident, and just watching the resuscitation in that room, and the camaraderie and the adrenaline rush and all the things. And I just knew then, I was like, this is it. This is what I want.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it sealed it for me.
Yeah. No kidding. Being terrified at first, and then I guess if you were, it actually kind of fits with you being an athlete. It's like kind of that adrenaline chasing piece of you, I suppose. That's how I see it. Although I never thought I could be an ER nurse. I think that the OR, it has its own sense of adrenaline. So
for sure,
you kind of match up a little bit. But
even L&D too, right? Like L&D definitely has that adrenaline piece to it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so you said this is where I want to be. I have found my home here. So you did your practicum, and then did you stay there? Did you get a job there? Did you go somewhere else?
I wanted to. I did. I wanted to. I graduated in 2010, and during that time, it was really hard to get a job. It was hard to get a job as a new grad, and Harborview did not hire new grads. They were like, hey, if you get a job and then apply in a year, like, we'll happily consider you. The problem was I did not want to stay in Seattle anymore unless I was going to be at Harborview. I was over the weather.
Yep.
I was over the weather. I missed my family.
Yeah.
So I tried to apply to a few hospitals in Southern California because I knew that's where I eventually wanted to end up. Again, it was just really hard to get a job. So during nursing school, I worked at a surgery center on a post-op floor as a, what did they call it? Is it a nurse apprentice? Maybe nurse apprentice is what they called it.
Okay.
And they offered me a job. They're like, hey, why don't you come work work for us as a new grad? So I was like, all right, great. I worked at the surgery center on their post-op floor for about a year, maybe 6 months.
Okay.
And then there was a job opening at Renown, which is a large hospital in Reno, a large trauma hospital. Their catchment area is like Davis to Salt Lake City to Vegas to Boise, Idaho. So they're a really busy hospital, and they have a surgical trauma ICU that I applied for. I didn't think I would get the job, and I did. And so even though it wasn't my choice to, wanted to do ER, I thought, well, let's start with the ICU. It'll be a great experience. It's trauma. So that's where it really started after my stint in post-op was then I got into the trauma ICU, not ER initially. So I started there.
Wow. Okay. And then did you spend much time in ICU?
I did. I was there in Reno at that ICU for about a year. I was able to get a little experience in the ER. The ICU nurses, you have a designated trauma bed, and if you have that trauma bed, then you respond to the ER when the trauma comes in, and you stay with that patient. Until it's deemed no, they're not going to the ICU, then you leave. The ER takes over, or if they are going to the ICU, you go to the OR with the patient, or you take the patient back to the ICU. So I was able to get a little bit of ER. I mean, not ER, but time in the ER. Yeah. And then I made my way back. I made my way to San Diego. I applied to a job in San Diego at a hospital, Mercy Hospital, and got a job in their surgical ICU. It was a surgical trauma ICU. I was exposed to like open hearts, which was new for me, but a great experience. So, really all surgical ICU patients, including trauma, I was caring for at that hospital. And I stayed there for about 3 years and then had the opportunity to go to my first ER job in 2015 at another trauma hospital and finally landed my ER trauma job.
Yeah. You finally ended up back home after those years of
I did. And, looking back, it was such a good route for me to go because that ICU experience was just, invaluable. It really was. It helped make me a much stronger nurse, my background, my, my knowledge base and everything going into the ER.
Yeah. No, I can totally see that. It makes you assess things a little bit different if you just were to have just gone into the ER and not have that experience. I imagine that your experience would be different,
Yes,
but
absolutely.
it made you kind of a much wholer. I don't know if that's a word.
Yeah, right. I get what you're saying. Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So you land and now you're at your dream. You made it back home. You're working in the ER. Are you still at the same facility, or did you jump from there to somewhere else?
So I was at the ER there for 10 years, and then this last October, I actually just left, and I'm now in PACU.
Yeah. See, you've made your way around, and you've gotten your experience, and PACU. We used to always, and I don't think that that's the case now, but we used to call PACU like the retirement job.
That's what I said when I was leaving the ER. I was like, I'm going out to pasture. I've had my almost 15 years of ER and ICU. I'm going out to pasture.
But you need that experience in order to work in PACU, because I could never work in PACU. I was cross-trained a short period of time only because I was a director of a surgery center and we cross-trained everyone. So I had to cross-train in the PACU. but it was not for me. I just I wasn't comfortable enough. I can't read an EKG for the life of me still to this day. So it wasn't meant for me. But those that have the experience, I can only imagine, you have ICU experience, you have ER experience. It makes you a beautiful PACU nurse because you've seen it all, basically.
It helps, like, especially, which it doesn't happen often, but it does happen, when something goes wrong,
Mm-hmm.
having the experience you just see it, like, even before the numbers on the monitors change, you can look at your patient and be
Yeah.
like,
No,
something's wrong,
Yeah.
and when you have a bunch of old ICU and ER nurses that are your
Yeah.
coworkers,
Yeah.
I mean, they're the most beautifully run codes when something goes wrong. Just
Totally.
everybody knows their
Yeah.
role and they know what their role is and how to do it and stuff, and they're
Mm-hmm.
great. But my true love will always lie in the ER and trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows? One day I might go back. I think that's the best
Sure.
part of what we do, is that there's so
Yep.
many areas that you can work in. But
Mm-hmm.
that's where I have spent most of my 15 years, was
Yeah.
in ER trauma, and
Yeah.
I just loved it. It was
Yeah.
the best. It was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like you're home. You're right. You never know. I mean, I was in the OR, and then I, chased the leadership ladder. And then I went into clinical IT for 5 years. I thought,
Right.
I'm never going to go back in the OR. In fact, I let my certification lapse, which I always tell young nurses was the biggest mistake of my life. I let my certification lapse. I'm never going to go back in the OR. I retired from nursing. Like, I'm good. And guess where I ended up? Back in the
Yes.
OR.
Yes.
As a staff nurse, not even in management. And then I had to retake my certification test, 15 years later, and it was harder
Yes.
than it was the first time. But the point is, we do have so many different avenues we can go in, and you just never know if you end up back where you started. I mean, I never thought I would end up back in the OR, and yet I did, and that was 9 years ago, which is so crazy to think of. But you just never know. But it is the beauty of it as well. Like you said, it's like the great thing is that you can go back if you wanted to.
You can, and for me, I feel like it's all about, your season of life. Like right now, this is where it fits, like with what I'm doing and what I have going on just in my life in general, is being in PACU. But, it still comes up. I have a friend who works at a different hospital who's like, hey, like, want to come do RRT here?
Yeah,
I'm like, I do rapid response. Like, that'd be awesome. That also sounds like a great job,
Right.
So I don't think that this is where I'll end up forever,
Sure.
in PACU. I think it's just it's a season,
Totally
and I think the more experience you get, like, the better. It makes you well-rounded. You get a better, just more broader spectrum of knowledge, I guess you could say. So
yeah, all of those travels have made me a better nurse. It's made you a better nurse. It really does. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this, why we're here, this medical legal side of things. Where did you hear about medical legal? How did that show up in your life?
I was actually, for a short while, I was doing pediatric telephone triage.
Okay.
Just like as a side gig. It was something I could do when my kids were asleep. I am a wife of a firefighter. My husband is gone for days at a time. And I have 3 young kids. So picking up shifts at the hospital is not always possible. And this was just a nice way to be able to do something after they go to bed. And, use my knowledge, do that. And I was talking to a friend from work about what I was doing. And she's like, girl, you shouldn't be wasting your time doing that. Like, you need to get into legal nurse consulting and expert work. What are you talking about? Like, what is that? Doesn't sound great.
Yeah.
So we started chatting. She's telling me about what she does. And at the time, she was really just doing mostly like the legal nurse consulting aspect. She wasn't yet into the expert side of it.
Right.
And I just thought, like, I loved the idea of educating, not maybe educating is the right word, but part of it is educating, right? Using the knowledge that I have to just using it in a different way that's not at the bedside. And so I started looking into it a little bit more, and I took a course online to just kind of get a basic understanding. And then I just really, I feel like, just kind of stumbled upon things. I stumbled upon LinkedIn, where I stumbled upon other, legal nurse consultants, and just really kind of grabbed onto everything that I could learn from it. And it just has kind of taken off since then. It just was really unexpected.
Yeah, that's interesting. I always love to hear the story on how we landed here in it's like half and half. It's like it just landed in your lap. Someone mentioned it to you, or it was for me, it was like something I had seen 20 years ago. And then it was just like we talked about earlier, it's just a season in my life where it just popped back up. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Now we're older, wiser, seasoned.
Yeah.
Maybe this makes more sense now. And then for some people, they've been looking. In fact, I remember my conversation with Charlotte, who was looking for, an opportunity to work remotely. She's up on a mountain trying to decide.
I know. I love reading about her adventures.
Yeah. And then it was like, oh, I could do this remotely. All right, let's go down this road. So everybody's story is different. Or there have been, many stories where they unfortunately had a personal experience, either a family member,
right,
or someone they know that had gone through something tragic, and that's the exposure that they got, and that's how they ended up in that. And this kind of like nursing too, it's like how do we all end up in nursing? Me writing the fact that I wanted to be a nurse, or people, in your life that were nurses, your parents, it's just I find it so interesting to hear how we all ended up kind of in the same place,
Yes.
And everybody's story is different. Okay, so you found this and you were like, this is a good fit, right? And yeah, clearly you enjoy it. What is one of your favorite things about doing this?
Oh, man. I love, like I said I said it earlier, I love being able to educate on what
Yeah.
I know, or what, using our knowledge in a different way that's not just at the bedside, having that like aha moment when you see something right in those records that you can explain. Um, I honestly I have loved the connections that I've made also, like in this community. I mean, it has been incredible and kind of strange, like how you can meet somebody online and, you start talking about whatever it is because of a case, or, somebody who's reached out, and then you've created these relationships with people. And now, if you talk to them like almost every day, or whatnot. And I think those two things have been the best part of starting doing. I mean, I guess it's been almost 18 months now that I've been doing it. So I'm still fairly new. But I've loved it. I just think that that's my favorite part.
Yeah. I think I love the fact that you say that. And I think it comes up often in here. I think why I love that you said that. I think it's the bonus. I think that that's something that we don't necessarily expect to happen in this world, because it's something new. And I know for me, I was just sharing with someone this morning about when I decided to do the podcast. And it was like, nobody knows who I am. Nobody, it's like, I'm just going to do it, but I don't know if anybody's going to show up even to do the interview, because they don't know who I am. And I jumped in, and here we are 50 something episodes later. And it's like the connections out of this podcast have been the bonus. And it was something that I didn't see in the beginning.
Yes.
Even for someone who knows that, building connections online is an important part of anyone's business, especially if you're promoting yourself marketing yourself. But the podcast, I didn't even think about the connection part. And it's really been such a blessing that it was like the bonus, of being a part of this community. So I love the fact that you shared that, because it is really, truly my favorite part.
And there's it's crazy just how much that imposter syndrome like sets in before you start off on either, your journey of a podcast, or starting, doing this LNC business, or being an expert witness.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
just kind of having to get over that hump. I mean, I've had such a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn. I love it because that's where I made my connections. That's where I've connected with my mentors who really guided me through the start of this process and still help me as my business has taken off and been a lot more busy. But the the actual, and I know it's not necessarily selling stuff, right? You're promoting yourself or you're marketing, but I just felt it. I just felt so uncomfortable doing that. Like it felt very unnatural for me. And I had somebody tell me once, like, well, the reason it feels that way is because that's what you think you have to do. But when you try to make connections, which is really what you're doing, you're trying to make connections, then it's going to be a lot easier. Find something that you like to do. You like to educate. Well, instead of trying to market yourself or what you say, sell yourself, why don't you try to educate people? So for a long while, when I was more active on LinkedIn, that was kind of my whole premise was like, all right, I love to talk about my experiences or what I've learned or a crazy case that I've had or things, whatever, an injury nobody knows about her. And I would make my posts about that. And that felt a lot more natural. It felt a lot more genuine to do that. Cause otherwise I felt weird. Like, I don't want to sell myself. Like it feels awkward. I'd rather, and online too, I'd rather do it in person, chat with somebody in person or talk about what I do in person.
Right.
So that was the learning curve.
Yeah. And I think also, we as nurses are not taught to market ourselves or sell ourselves. And so it's naturally going to be this, I don't want to do that.
Like it's just something
that it doesn't
weird.
It's just something that doesn't come natural. But I love the fact that you said, well, you decided, or someone told you, do something that feels natural, and educating feels natural to you. And that's what you did. And that's, then you start to enjoy it. And I think that it doesn't have to be educating. It can be whatever that is to you personally, as long as you're enjoying what you're doing, then you're going to show up, and then it's not going to feel like selling, and it's not going to feel like marketing. It's, if you love to build connections, then make it about connecting, because it is a business. You do need to, you can't hide in a corner and expect to be successful. You have to be brave and step out. But I also think that there's so many different ways to do it. And you just shared that,
There are. And I think when you do it the way that feels the most genuine is when stuff happens, right? Like when I was posting what I felt to be genuine, and it wasn't to try and sell something or to try to attract attention to get a client. When I was just doing what felt great was when I actually had people and attorneys reaching out to me or other LNCs like, hey, I have a case that I think you could be a good expert for, or, do you want a subcontract or whatever it may be. Then I felt like stuff started happening was when I was actually just being genuine and doing what I wanted. And the other part was, I think as nurses, like and especially as an ER nurse, it's like something needs to be done, or if somebody says something needs to be done, like we get it done right now. Like it happens and it happens fast. In this industry, that is not the case. And that is so hard to accept. Layers of so many planting of seeds and then really having to nurture those and watch them grow. It's not instantaneous, which I think as nurses is really what happens in the hospital, right? Like it happens right away. And so, man, that virtue of patience really had to play into it. I had to really dig deep into that.
Yeah, no, I think that that's a really good point. I think that's something that we don't talk about that often. I know on here we don't talk about that often. And I'm constantly reminding myself of that. I think that you no matter how long you've been doing it, and again, I haven't been doing it for forever. There is still, the self-doubt, there is still the imposter syndrome that creeps up every once in a while. But there's also, like you said, that patience that you need. No matter how many clients you have, it's like, okay, I've been busy. And then you get this little dip.
Yes.
And you try not to panic, and you think, wait a minute. And then you have, I'm speaking for myself too. You have to say, okay, wait, I have been planting seeds for how long? we're just going to trust that we've just continued to plant seeds and they will come to fruition because that's
right.
just the way it goes.
Exactly. Or going back to those seeds that you haven't paid attention to in a while, right?
Yeah,
And being like, hey, how are things going? Reaching back out. And so I think there's a lot of humility involved in it, a lot of patience, a lot of hard work, a lot of being okay with, and I guess you could call it rejection, or you can call it just more motivation.
Yeah.
So it was as much as I like being able to apply what I've known, and I'm an expert in these cases, but I've learned so much. Like it has really humbled me and brought me back down to an area that kind of was good to feel uncomfortable in something new and really grow from that. I mean, I think that was a big part of this for me and growing and just not only being a nurse, but now in a new role.
Right. Right. Which is probably part of your nature because you haven't been in one environment at one, for your entire career. It is kind of that, not the adrenaline. I'm not going to say the same thing, but it's like you've jumped into a new role, it makes you feel a little uncomfortable, but you know that you grow out of that. And so this is an opportunity to do the same thing without changing your role, without changing completely what you're doing. So there's still a safety net. You still have your day job, but there's still that little element of like, I still am learning something new. I'm still challenging myself. And I think that I can connect with that a lot in that the constant challenge is, for me, gets me to show up every day.
Absolutely.
Some can think like, oh my gosh, you're constantly working, you're constantly hustling. It's not hustling, but you're constantly doing these things. Will you ever be content? Right. But I think that there are some of us that are content with a constant challenge.
That is the perfect way to put it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, like that constant challenge of being better, doing better.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I mean, I think that's how you grow when you put yourself in those situations that are hard or a little bit uncomfortable.
I think that legal nurses in general that's probably built in their DNA. It's just like,
you either want to do it or you do not want to do it.
Exactly. You either want to do it or you don't want to do it, or you think you do, but it may not be for the right reason. It's like,
right. Or you see the hard work. I think a lot of people are like, I've talked to so many people about what I do. Just, it comes up.
Yeah.
And, oh, I totally want to do that. Like, that sounds great.
Yeah.
And when you like, how did it start? And when you really talk about like, how you start, and it doesn't just happen. It's like, oh, really?
Oh,
like,
no kidding.
I don't know if I want to do that. And you're like, yeah, well, you shouldn't, because it is a lot of hard work. It's a lot of patience. It's a lot of time. It's not, some people might say it's instantaneous to, get you to join their program or whatever. But I promise you, most people's journey, it's not that.
No, it's not that. But it's funny that you say that. You have these conversations with other people and they think, oh, wow, that's exciting. Oh, they listen to whatever cases or stories or, wow, that's so cool. And then you say, well, yeah, I sit at a computer and I read these medical records and my eyes are cross-eyed by the end. They go, oh, I don't want to do that. Forget it. It was like, wait a minute.
Man.
You were going to be my next subcontractor.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. I remember telling somebody like, oh, yeah, I just finished this case. It was 18,000 pages. And they were like, I'm so like, what? Yeah. I remember when they were like, 18,000. I remember thinking like 7,000 was large, and now I'm like, oh yeah, 7,000. Like, that's not bad.
Right.
But when,
exactly.
When you really explain just what goes into doing just what we do and getting started and the hard work that you got to put in to get started, and then maintaining that, it doesn't just end there, but maintaining those relationships, maintaining your reputation. It's continuous, but for sure the beginning it's real hard. It's hard. I mean, it was for me. I know that's not everybody's experience, but it was hard.
I think it's most people's experience. And that's kind of why I love this podcast, because it's like, let's keep it real. It is hard, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as that's what you are okay with, then it's for you, So speaking of that hard start, since there are a lot of people that listen to this podcast that are just getting started, or, it's like kind of the people that have either are in the middle of a program, are deciding on a program, or have finished a program and they're just getting started. And here we've talked about how hard this is. Sorry, everyone. What would your advice be on getting started? It's like, we know this. Let's just take, for example, that they know enough. They know enough skill. They have enough information. What would that next step be for them on really launching?
I mean, I know I just said how much of a love-hate relationship I have with LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But that would be my first piece of advice is get on LinkedIn. And I thought initially, like, I need to connect with attorneys, like connections with attorneys, blah, blah, blah. All right, great. That's fine. But more importantly, I think it's your connections with your other legal nurse consultants. Like I said, I randomly just reached out to a couple when I first started, and two of those, I mean, we talk like on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And so many of those legal nurse consultants, not so many, but many of them I've been a subcontractor for, or have been referred to as an expert for, or but I just think that not only being able to make those connections and just sending a message saying like, hey, I'm just starting on this journey. Do you have any advice? Or I just wanted to pass along my information. And then reading their posts, reading what they've learned, interacting if you can, if that feels genuine to you, interacting with posts on LinkedIn. But I really think connecting with other legal nurse consultants, reading their experiences based off their posts, sending them a message, staying in contact, I think is my biggest piece of advice, because I think programs are great. I took like an online course that was really self-guided, and it was very basic information, which was great. There's books, I've read a few, but I think the best learning I've ever gotten has been through subcontracting, which I still do. Just learning on the job and being open, with your contractor in what you could do better and how they do things. I think it's the best. I mean, it's education that you're getting paid for. How does it get better? So I think back to your question, getting in on LinkedIn, creating relationships with other legal nurse consultants first and foremost.
Okay. I love that. I love the fact that you said that. I'm going to take this a step further. So I've seen this a lot lately, where it's not necessarily on LinkedIn, but it's on, these Facebook groups, and people have said, okay, here's my background. I've taken a course. I really would love to subcontract. Please pick me, right? Which is great because you're putting yourself out there. But what you're saying about connecting with people on LinkedIn, connecting with other legal nurses on LinkedIn, and how important that is. What would you say your advice is on how to take that, hey, here's how I started, or here's my background, how could I be of assistance to you? What would be your advice on staying connected? I'm kind of leading you into this question because I know the answer, because I get messages and I love the messages, and please keep the messages coming. But I get messages that say, and I'm sure you do too, hey, I'm just getting started, which is great. And then you don't hear from them again. Yeah. Right. And that's, what would you say to someone that was brave enough to send the message, which is awesome? Yeah. What would you say to them? How to continue that?
This might sound blunt, but like, stay relevant. So if you're going to send that message and say that you're interested, then show your interest by, and I think the best way to do it is interacting, whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook, put your name out there so that they see you interacting with these posts, whether even it doesn't even have to be anything substantial, but like, hey, like that was so informative. Like I just learned a lot, or I love reading your posts, or I just experienced something similar. Just a little comment so that people see your name and they're like, and I think you could agree with this, that you go on LinkedIn and I might not remember somebody's last name, but if I see their picture and their first name, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the med surg nurse. Oh yeah, that's the oncology expert. Like because they're active, you remember seeing their name. And so then later on down the road, when something comes up where you're like, gosh, I really need this subcontractor, maybe have an oncology background. Oh yeah, that's so and so. I wonder, I've been seeing her active. She's showing interest. The one thing that I did also that my first one of my first LNCs that I subcontracted for was I sent her my own sample chronology and I just said, hey, listen, I completely understand if you don't have the time. I mean, she was already so willing to help me out and told me like I'd be willing to look at whatever you want to send me. And I'm very grateful for that and lucky to have that. But I sent her my own sample. I just created on my own. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just did it and I sent it to her and she was like, wow, this is great. She didn't have work for me at that time, but when she had another LNC that she knew who asked her, hey, I need a subcontractor. Do you know anybody? She told her like, hey, Jess has never done a case before. Or maybe she's done, I think I had done 2 or 3 at that time. She's like, but she sent me a sample case and I was really like blown away. Like she'd taken the initiative to do it. I think she'd be good for you. So I think just taking that initiative to go kind of that extra step also and be like, hey,
I love that. Yeah.
This is what I did. And that kind of spilled over, even though she didn't have anything at that time. And then I've subcontracted for her, but she passed my name along.
Yeah.
So I think those are the 2 things, stay relevant. And if you can go that extra mile by just sending a sample, it doesn't have to be great. Just showing that effort that you're interested in it and you want to learn, I think speaks volumes.
Yeah. I think that going that extra mile, which some people may think, I don't know what that extra mile looks like.
Right.
But going that extra mile could look like sending your sample, which people don't do, right? So going the extra mile, you definitely would stand out if you had sent a sample to me rather than, hey, I'm interested in subcontracting. If you're interested in me, let me know and I'll send you a sample. Go ahead and send it. It may go in the inbox or stay in the inbox or whatever, but if you take that initiative to show up and be seen, like you said, you recognize people's image and their first name and maybe what their tagline is. But I also think that it goes a long way with like the fact that you show up all the time. It's like, okay, I keep seeing this person's name and that's how I remember it. The one time thing or the one message, hey, if you're interested, I don't know if you're subcontracting now or you need subcontractors now, but I'm interested in being one. And then you don't hear from them again. You'll never remember their name.
Right.
But if you just take, like you're saying, and I'm just like spitballing literally right now. If you just take maybe 5 LNCs out there on LinkedIn and you stay connected with those 5, you don't have to blanket everyone, right? You take those 5 LNCs and it sounds so cheesy, but you become their best friend. It really does sound cheesy, but I'm telling you, this is what works.
It does.
Because you're top of mind. And I know that I've used subcontractors because of that reason, is because I kept seeing their face and they were interested in whatever I had to say. Gosh, whatever. But they were interested. So I was going to remember them because I remember their name. I mean, it's really sad that we all kind of blend together and we're all nurses, but it's the reality of it. Social media is kind of this big blip that goes really fast.
Yeah.
But if you stay connected and you have a sample and maybe it's not perfect and you say, hey, I haven't really done a case, but I put this together and send it. I love that advice because it makes you stand out and then you're going to remember, what was that nurse that sent me the sample? Right. Oh yeah. And you go and look in your messages and you look for the one that sent the sample. It was like, that's how you become memorable. Yeah.
Right. You send something and, being open. I mean, I think being open to any constructive criticism is huge. I mean, you have to be willing to, especially if you're sending something you've never done before, take that advice that anybody is willing to give you on what to work on. And that goes along with being a subcontractor too, taking that constructive criticism, making sure that you produce the product that you're supposed to. But, back to what you're saying with LinkedIn, just connecting with even just a few, because then it spans, right? Like you could just connect with a few, 100%. You're commenting on their posts and then somebody's like, oh, I'm seeing so-and-so's name quite a bit. And then they connect with you and it just spreads. And, I really haven't been active on LinkedIn in almost a year now. I mean, I was going hard for a while and there was a moment last year where all of a sudden I just started getting a lot of referrals and, expert work. And I just became so busy that I just did not have time for LinkedIn anymore. And the word of mouth started spreading, which was awesome. And I'm so grateful for, and I really didn't know how to manage it. And now that I am starting to figure out how to kind of manage and create my own system, I do miss that education part, not education, but just sharing on LinkedIn. And so I've thought a little more about getting back on there and getting active again, because I really do love and appreciate the community that I've created on there and the people that I've gotten to know and the connections that I've created on that. And I think that says, I don't know, it's just, it's great. It's a great thing to have.
I love that. I love the fact that we're talking about this, because I think that maybe we tend to complicate things a little bit, right? And think that it's something bigger than that. Oh, we've got to create all these posts and people have to show up for us. But really, the easiest way is when you show up for other people and you're consistently showing up for other people, you become memorable. I know for a fact that because of that is how I'm at 50 something interviews of this podcast, is because I keep my eye open for people out there. And the more they show up, the more I see them, and I love what they're doing, and I reach out to them. It's my favorite thing in the world, is to reach out to them and say, I love how you're showing up. I would love to interview you for the podcast. So it doesn't need to be this like, I'm creating posts, come look at me. It really is showing up on other people's posts and being seen and really being genuine about being interested. And if you're not interested, then move on to the next person you're interested, because I do know that there is that struggle as well. It's like you can't force being interested. It's very obvious, right? Or you show up and you like the post and you like the post and you like the post and you're still not going to be memorable. But really show genuine interest and you will be memorable. And you never know. You get an influx of 6 cases and you're like, oh crap, now I need a subcontractor. Who am I going to think of? And it's going to be the person that you remember top of mind, So I love
think it just
that.
shows interest, I mean, if you really want to do something, you don't, not to say that people quit when it's hard or quit when they don't get attention, which like, trust me, there are plenty of times where I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this is not working. But like, I think those that hang in there, those are the ones that really want to do it too. Right. Like, so the people who really aren't interested in it, or, maybe it's not going to be a great fit, like you fizzle out. But if it's something you truly want to do, and I think this goes for anything, you hang in there and you show up, even when it's not easy, or even when you think that you shouldn't be doing this, you still show up, and it happens. And it happens for exactly that reason that you said, people remember you.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, we could talk about this forever.
We could, right?
Right? Yeah, totally. So, but we won't. We'll keep it short. Just kidding. It wasn't short, but that's okay. This is great. Again, we could talk about this forever. All right. So speaking of, where can we find you on LinkedIn?
So my handle is that what it's called?
Handle? Of course it is. Yeah.
my name on LinkedIn is Jess Medina. And I believe it says, I think it's BSN LNC. I should probably have this memorized, but you can find me, Jess Medina. It says on there that I'm an ER critical care expert, which I still serve as an expert witness for that background. I can add PACU to my list now as well. You can find me there on LinkedIn.
And if you're in need of an ER nurse, critical care PACU expert, reach out to Jess, because I know I have, and she's been wonderful. And so, and this information will be in the show notes, so they can click on it easily and find you. But I know that you're going to have an influx of messages in your inbox because of the great information you shared, and just, I know someone's going to connect with you in some way, and they're going to show up and they're going to love it and they're going to let you know. So I'm looking forward to that for you. And
thank you.
I appreciate you spending the time with me and chatting about this and sharing your story. I had a great time. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for asking me. I'm so glad we finally got to do it.
Totally. Thank you for joining us in this fun conversation on the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting podcast. I hope you found this episode as inspiring and empowering as I always do. And I hope that you share this episode with your friends. If you enjoyed it, I would love it if you could leave us a review or comment, as I would love to share them in the future episodes. Or hop on over into my DMs and send me a quick message. I can be found on Instagram at anna.b.gray, on my website at limitlesslnc.com, and over on LinkedIn at Anna Gray. And I want you to remember, you are limitless. Until next time.